that we provide a state-of-the-art computer for brand new models to be developed. Not, I mean, the models today are basically added on piece by piece from technology in the 70s, from computer technology in the 70s. I think we can change that. We need to bring together leaders in science and computer technology. We have to address all of those perceived mistakes that I mentioned. We have to share that funding and oversight. I added down at the bottom what the budget of the National Center for Atmospheric Research is, about $130 million a year. Even if we were to spend $100 million on this kind of an institute that I'm talking about, it's cheap, considering the numbers that I've been hearing around here. $3.5 billion that the United States is going to contribute to whatever this fund is. Thank you very much. I appreciate it, and I'm open for questions. I have, I'm just going to leave this on the board. You can copy down some of these websites. I've also left copies of the penultimate presentation that I just gave on the back table, and there are a few up here in the chair.
So,
yeah.
So Bill, I know this isn't your area of expertise, but I wonder how effective media is in the United States in actually knowing how to translate this information and engage in such a complex thing without really appealing to the polarization of climate change as an issue that people either are for or very against.
That's a very good question about the role of the media in this. And when I first, you can probably tell by my gray hair here that I've been around a little while anyway. And when I first started doing research, there were science reporters scattered around the country. I think in Texas, for example, there were at least 5, and people who really wrote about science. Today, I understand there's 1. In the whole state of Texas, one lone reporter who is attempting to cover all the science and interpret it for the rest of us. This is, there are good science writers around and good people trying to interpret what science does and make it understandable to the public. But I think that this is a concern. I know that there are good ones, and I wish that we could grow some more. Yes, sir.
Since in the last month or two since you submitted the abstract, we've seen a few other IPCC scandals. We've seen, for example, Himalayan glaciers, where IPCC relied on solely a WWF paper while calling a scientific study out of India voodoo science that reached a different conclusion. We've seen them rely on similar partisan papers alone for assertions that the Amazon rainforest is disappearing, etc. In light of these mounting scandals, I'm wondering what your thought is in terms of whether IPCC is a viable voice in the future, whether there need to be some very serious reforms, or what do you see happening with IPCC ideally?
There will be some reforms. I think that there are going to be big changes in the peer review process for the IPCC. There will be, there are calls for the head of Pachari. Some of my colleagues have written letters saying that he needs to be taken off the job because he wasn't being that attentive. There are other of my colleagues who are saying that since the first IPCC report, where I led the technical review of that report, there has been no overall technical review of the IPCC. I don't know for sure. But because I'm being told that, I'm thinking that maybe there are other reforms that have to be done here as well. Maybe we have to go back to some of those perceptions that I mentioned. We tend to get a little full of ourselves, a little too much hubris, perhaps. I am confident, basically, in the IPCC and in the report and in the research that we are doing. But I want to see reform. I want to see action being taken here to stop that kind of thing. So I think it will happen.
One more question, if there is one, in the back.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, Jeff Michelle again. So I'm an American who's been living in Europe for 40 years. And every time I come back, it just seems that there's so much contradiction between people's lifestyles and financing you to tell them what they're doing wrong. I used to think they learned in high school. If you extrapolate trends in air traffic to mid-century, and you want to achieve 80% reduction in CO2 emissions, then all of the emissions of the world are going to be coming from airplanes. And people just can't accommodate something like that. Or how about ocean acidification? Everybody learned that in high school too, that if you add gases in a bell jar and so forth, that the water absorbs that and the water becomes acid, and indeed the world's oceans are becoming acidic. They're simply not commented upon, either by you nor by the science writers that you talked about.
I think your question or your statement is that there are a lot of these things going on that we won't be able to control. And that was the purpose of my putting up that very, very complex model of the global economy and people's behavior, and as well as climate.
Thank you very much. In dealing with this issue, we have one more talk that will be carried out now. Thank you.